Hey, we are now just 2 weeks away from the start of some small conference tournaments, the Horizon, the Patriot, the Sun Belt. We are now just 26 days away from the conclusion of all the conference tournaments and Selection Sunday. Less than 4 weeks away, and we are starting to crystallize some things. By the way, if you want to rack up some extra points on a winning college hoops wager, you can, thanks to an odds boost token at BetMGM right now. Activate it for any college basketball bet, and you'll get a bigger payout if that bet wins. Again, check it out in your BetMGM app today. This is, I think, well, first of all, I had no idea that Rick Pitino was being followed around by Vice Sports this season for this show. But I love the fact that he is, because Pitino is old school in that he's going to talk to his kids a certain way. Now, there's not a lot of coaches who can still get away with talking to players like this. But it's great because I think in some instances, you still get a great reaction out of players when you challenge them on this level. What I'm talking about is his halftime speech he gave to his St. John's Red Storm team at halftime. This is way back on a Friday night in December, Kate. It's December. They're playing their second conference game of the season, their first one on the road. They were at Providence, and they're down by 13 at the half. They ended up coming back to win that game after being down 13 at the half. They ended up coming back to beat Providence on a Zuby Ejiofor putback at the buzzer. 72-70. St. John's fans may remember that game. They have gone 11-2 in the conference since then. 12-2 overall since that comeback win on the road at Providence. This is just, maybe I'm putting too much into this because I just happened to see it this morning, and we're talking about a hot team who, could be in that top 16 when the next, preliminary bracket reveal comes out. But this is one of those things that I think when you look back on it, St. John's fans and the team itself is going to be able to say, yeah, I remember that Friday night right before Christmas when Coach ripped us a new one, and we came storming back in the second half to win.
Yeah, 43-28 in the second half. If they didn't have a little fire lit under them in the first half to start, certainly came in the second half. Just a few of my favorite quotes from that speech, Chris. Your children with bad things happening? What? Where were you guys raised? All of a sudden, he's dissing the mamas? Like, I'm surprised someone didn't stand up and say, you don't talk about my mama like that. Where was I raised? Yeah. But hey, motivation, that's what you got to do. And Rick Pitino knows that better than anyone. Hold your players accountable, motivate them sometimes with a couple bleep words, and question how they were raised. Apparently, that's the recipe.
Sometimes, and look, I totally get this, and it's a completely different level, but like I've helped coach my kids' youth basketball teams. Granted, we're talking about like third and fourth graders in some instances, so I would never give that kind of speech. Let's just be clear. But like sometimes you can motivate kids by, I don't want to say coddling. That's not the right word, but with positive reinforcement, right? Like, hey, Johnny, I know you're great. Go out and show me how great you can be, right? And sometimes that works. Sometimes it needs to be a little bit more of a, for lack of a better way to put it, kick in the ass. And that's what he gave them that night. And you say, Johnny, you think you're great? You haven't shown me anything yet tonight. Go ahead. Get out there and show me something because you haven't shown me crap yet. And sometimes that is what motivates a team. It's just something I think, coaching has come into, I don't want to say come into question in a lot of places this year, but, we see Tony Bennett decide to walk away from coaching earlier this season. We see, and granted, Jim Larinaga was at the end of a really decorated career when he decided to hang him up, but we see Larinaga walk away mid-season. We see other guys saying, yeah, I think I'm done now. I'm good. I'm not interested in coming back. But then you see a Pitino or you see a Cal get sort of shoved out the back door in Lexington and go down to Arkansas and sort of start anew and has found something maybe in the back half of this SEC conference schedule. And it just reinforces to you that, like, sometimes you got to be an ass kicker to succeed in major collegiate sports. And that's what that moment was. And it's moreover, it's worked for St. John's. I think that's what keeps reinforcing it to me is like, you look at St. John's, this is one of those teams we've talked about, 35-1 right now to win the title. Do I think St. John's, if they have to, can get through, an Iowa State and a Bama or a Florida or a Duke or an Auburn and go all the way and win a national title? No, obviously, if all of those speed bumps are placed in the road in front of them, I don't think they can conquer all of them. More than speed bumps, it's probably like climbing a mountain in each case. But this is the kind of thing that I think gives people reason to believe in some of those longer shot teams. Hey, not only did their coach flip out at halftime and they came back and won the game 2 months ago, but they've gone 13-2 since then. I see a team like St. John's. I see a team like Texas Tech, who is 30-1 or longer. And I say, those teams are doing something right, as opposed to maybe a UConn who plays tonight. Interesting matchup against Villanova at 33-1. And I go, doesn't feel like that coach has the same handle on things right now.
He's got the same screaming. He's got the same intensity, but maybe a little different handle in terms of how his team is responding. I mean, Rick Pitino has been around the block. These coaches know their players so well that they know what will make them tick, right? They know that getting mad at them, yelling at them at halftime is going to be okay. Like that may motivate them even more than coddling them or being nice or, this wasn't our first half, this wasn't it. That doesn't work, right? And they know that. And these players are, as much as they are college kids, they're also grown men that they can handle that. And you're right. When they played Providence, Chris, they weren't ranked. Now they're the 10th ranked team in the country. I think those players would take getting screamed at halftime to become the 10th ranked team in the country over that not happening. And St. John's, maybe they don't make it to the championship. Maybe they don't win this year, but maybe you look at a Final Four appearance. Maybe you look at an Elite Eight appearance and bet on them that way. You're not going to get quite as long of odds as that you were to win the title, but do we think that's actually realistic? Well, no. So let's take it back a step to where it is realistic, where we can actually make some money, even though it might not be that same long shot.
Yeah, I can't wait it'll be 4 weeks from now. We'll see those numbers get posted for, Sweet 16s and Elite Eights and Final Fours. And those are the kind of teams, St. John's, I mentioned Texas Tech. I've mentioned Iowa State before, although certainly they're going to go deeper, I think, than a Sweet 16. But those are the kind of teams that I look at and say, okay, there's something there. I might not be willing to bet them at 30-1, 35-1 for a national championship. But certainly, if that Sweet 16 number gets posted, and I don't know what we're talking about because it depends on the draw and how the bracket lays out. But, if you give me St. John's, even in a stacked bracket, let's say they're a 4 seed, it would certainly depend on who the 1 seed is. But would any of us be shocked if St. John's is a 4, drew, I don't know. I said earlier I couldn't see them beating Alabama, but, who knows how Alabama comes into the tournament as a 1 seed maybe. St. John's is a 4 against. You think there's any 1 seed that's excited to get St. John's as a 4 or 5 in the Sweet
Absolutely
16? Not. No. That's where you get, maybe Illinois at a 50-1 to win the title. I don't think works, but you get them at a decent number for a Sweet 16 run. These are the teams that, in all honesty, Kate, are more interesting to me right now than some of the teams that are already locks for the tournament. And we're talking about national championship numbers, because these are the teams that have already shown me they know how to respond in certain situations, as opposed to those teams, Auburn, Duke, Bama, Florida, even down to Tennessee and Iowa State, who their level of response is going to have to be at a different level once we get to March into that second weekend.
And have they been totally tested at this point in the season? I know we talked yesterday, the SEC schedule down the stretch, just in conference play with so many teams being ranked, like that will be a good indicator of what we can expect in the tournament in high pressure situations against top teams. We also talked yesterday a lot about, coaching matters in the tournament too. How many times has Pitino been to the tournament? He has been around forever. The guy is ancient. I mean, you could say the same thing with Tom Izzo. I mean, you can't count out a Michigan State team because of the coaching. Even Coach Cal, I mean, he has not had that much success at Arkansas this season. And I don't know where Arkansas is on the bubble or if they're firmly in, but even someone like that who has not had a lot of success lately still has been around the block and in the tournament. So those are also things. Mark Few is another one that you kind of have to keep in mind a little bit. And maybe you're not placing futures on them, but if you gave me, if it was Auburn, St. John's, and I'm getting points with St. John's, I'll take those points, right? When
Yeah.
the time comes, maybe sprinkle a little money line there. Like there's also ways to view this in terms of like when the bracket's out and we are actually in the tournament, the games are going on, a game to game basis of who do you want to back in these situations.
I mean, Arkansas 2 months ago had been left for dead by the side of the
Yeah.
SEC highway. Arkansas right now, as of Joe Lenardi's bracketology this past Friday, was one of the last four in as a play-in 11 seed against San Diego State. That's how far they have come. So that, and this feeds into another thing. We brought this up on BetMGMU, conveniently enough, also inside your Odyssey app and on our YouTube channel every weekend. But RJ Choppy and John Martin and I talked about this, Kate. You know, recency bias is a thing because it's a thing. And so as you see Arkansas heat up at the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
as you see teams get more attention down the stretch, like this, this St. John's team has been good now for 2 months, really going back to that rant from Pitino that we just played. But as more people notice them, Texas Tech is a good example, as they've picked up over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and more people start to notice them. It's the committee is not immune to that same kind of reaction, I don't think. And you're going to see it materialize when the bracket is released in 26 days that maybe Wake Forest is on the outside looking in because they're in a very weak ACC, and Arkansas gets one of those last four bids because they're in a very strong and deep SEC and happen to catch everyone's attention at the end of the year.
Yeah, and Chris, just one other thing to add: number one seeds, they do make it to the Final Four quite often. About 41% of the time, a number one seed wins the title. So we're not saying necessarily like disregard all of the top seeds going into the tournament and don't take them to win. You have to go down the board further. That's not it, because the
Yeah.
numbers will tell you that 25 of 39 national champions have been number one seeds since 1985. So that does happen, but just a game to game or even betting for specific rounds in the tournament further down the board is a way to look. And obviously coaching matters, and where these teams end up after their conference tournaments matter quite a bit.
And just two of the teams we were talking about. St. John's, again, I'll use Lenardi's latest bracketology as the template. They're a 5 seed in a region with Kansas as the 4 and Bama as the 1. Would it be surprising? Sure, but would it shock the world? I don't think so. Michigan State is the 4 in a region with Marquette as the 5 and Auburn as the 1. Would it be surprising? Yes. Would it shock us? Maybe not.